Broodcast on Poets at War, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. And now, the Broodcast.
Good evening, Wilsons.
Guten Abend.
What's up?
Well, another day on this side of the sod.
Sod is one of those used that seems to only be used anymore when you're speaking of, like, actual laying down turf, or you're rhyming with God. Or the word trod. Which also, trod is never really used, except when to rhyme with sod. Or God.
I trod on the sod.
I only ever hear it in hymns where they're rhyming, yeah.
I made it.
There's another usage of sod, but I will not state it here.
That's true. Good to see you, Daniel. Good to hear from you at least. And Brendan's here. I am trying to find a chapter. Yep, there it is. That Joel, my Joel, not Alex's Joel, shared because he has D&D nights on Friday nights. So I will share his thing later.
I literally thought my first thought was, honestly,
what your first thought was what?
The prophet
Joel.
Yeah,
my pastor recently preached through Joel. Yeah, my pastor recently preached through Joel. So there's that.
Nice.
So that was good. All right, we got 4 right away. 5. Yeah, 5 including me. Go ahead.
How many pastors preach through the gloom and doom books?
He's Presbyterian, dude.
That's true. I am Presbyterian. Still, he hasn't touched my favorite, which is actually not all gloom and doom at all, but it's definitely minor prophet. Zephaniah is one of my favorite books in the Bible. I love Zephaniah. Like, I'm not even.
Is that
joking.
right?
It's so good. There's this one part in chapter 3 where it's only 3 chapters, but right toward the end, where after giving, just lambasting blow after lambasting blow, particularly to the ruling class of Israel and how they have oppressed the people and been greedy for gain, it says, "And I will restore your fortunes before your eyes." And it's like, I get the picture from The Hobbit of like the greedy dwarves being told that they'll have Khazad-dûm again one day, right? Like it's really, really cool to see that God takes that desire that was perverted and is like, yeah, and you're and when I do redeem you, you're gonna get everything you ever wanted. You know what I mean? Like, it's so cool. Oh boy.
Yeah, I haven't read it in a long time. Probably the Book of Nahum.
Nahum is good. What were you saying, Brendan? Anything? No? Okay.
He's remaining silent.
Thanks for reminding me. I got it. Just letting Joel know that I will have it. Okay. So that's good. That's good. I don't know who else is going to show up tonight, but we shall see. I am recording double tonight. I am hoping to get clips for things as well, but we shall see how that goes. I'm not sure if that clip went, but we'll see. Anyway, but also, like, I'm recording vertical so that I have this weird idea, because YouTube is pushing some vertical streams lately. I'm like, I could technically like do a replay stream, see what happens. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. But yeah. So who else got stuff to share? Everybody so far?
Ooh, pick me. I have a thing.
I have stuff.
Both Wilsons, yes. Yes.
Chris, do you have stuff?
Or are you just hanging and sharing? Okay, she's finding it. And
He's finding stuff.
Daniel, you have stuff to share too?
I do. Promises it's good I do not have, but we will share nonetheless.
That sounds fine to me. So with me, you've got two because I'm sharing for Joel and I'm sharing me, but my thing is less story and more copy. I have a version of the copy from my upcoming audiobook for Guardians of Atlanta that I want to run through you guys and get your feedback. I think it's pretty good, but I need feedback. So
I want to run through you guys. I'm imagining Joshua with a spear just charging.
I was thinking more a coffee filter or some sort. Anyway. You guys filter out all the bad stuff.
Coffee filter, what's the difference?
That's clipped. Okay. So at least it should be. I press the button. I don't know if it's actually. Let's try another button. See if it's working or not.
Push the button. Kick the machine.
Yeah, the buttons aren't working. Let's see here. I'm going to try and fool with that while someone goes first. Brendan, you were pretty enthusiastic. Does that mean you're wanting to go first?
It means it means I want to share at some point. I'm wondering if it would be a good idea so that
there we are. We had an oracular pig. Anyway,
am I muted?
We're good.
No. We have an oracular pig. Okay. Sorry. Every time you say oracular pig, I assume that there's something wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's the point.
That's a sentence.
My buttons weren't working, and now they are.
That also should be clipped. I feel like that also should be clipped. Every time I hear oracular pig, I feel like something's wrong. That's the point.
Exactly.
I think so. I'm wondering if it's a good idea, or if it would be a better idea to have Joel, not Joel, go first. So that he doesn't have to slog through a lot.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah, I think I can do that. Yeah. Okay.
And then I can go if you want, because I've decided what I want to share, and it's because I want to specifically make sure that people think that it makes sense.
Got it. Okay.
As long as I'm not last, because I don't want to end us on a dour note if this thing does not turn out the way I envision it.
Oh, shush you. You're fine.
That
You're a better
is
writer than you think.
Oh, I know.
That's quitter talk.
That's quitter talk.
It just, you either go first and you set the pace, or you go last and then you don't live up to everybody else. So somewhere in the middle is best for me.
Alrighty. I usually end up going last because everyone else is like, I need to go because I need to leave in a little bit. And I'm like, okay, someone will hear it.
I got all
say something about it.
I'm loving this new job. I am off on Fridays and Saturdays. So.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, let me get Joel's thing up and I will read it. This is a chapter from his book. I will go ahead and just read it. I know most of the characters. I'm probably going to screw a bunch of stuff up just because I'm not as familiar with it as him. So just keep that in mind. 22, Ground Zero. Jack jumped off the fire truck and ran to the first person he saw. A young man lying on the ground. Ripping off his thick glove, Jack felt for a pulse. Nothing. He looked through the dense dust that hung in the air at the bodies that littered the street. This one's already gone, he yelled through his mic. He took 2 steps and knelt over the next one. Same here, Sully reported. This one's gone too, Drew called. As 3 of the firemen checked, the body sprawled on the street. The 4th took off his mask as he picked his way over to the paramedics. They had geared up on the way, but the bulky air mask made it hard to talk to people. You guys okay? What's going on? Mitch asked. They're dead. They're all dead. Every single one of them, the first paramedic said in complete panic. Mitch glanced at his name tag. Ted. Do you remember that meteor that everyone said wouldn't hit? Well, it did. Now people are dropping left and right, said the second paramedic. She was doing CPR on a policeman. I was just talking to this guy and he collapsed. It's the spookiest thing I've ever seen. Were you here when it hit? Nancy, and no. She's saying her name. He's going, yeah, he's asking her name. Were you here when it hit? Nancy, and no. We were on a call, and they told us to come back. Nancy turned to Ted. You gonna help here? Why, they're all dead, Ted replied, staring off at nothing. Hey, we've got a live one, Sully called, pointing across the road. Mitch and the paramedics rushed over. The woman lay face down on the sidewalk. The only sign of life was her foot twisting. Ma'am, can you hear us? Nancy asked, setting a stretcher down next to the woman. Gah! Jack screamed. What? Mitch called. This guy's moving too, but I just checked him. The man laying next to Jack bent his arm back and forth. Ted started over to Jack. He moved slowly and rubbed his head as he walked. Hey, are you okay? Jack asked Ted. Knelt down next to him. I just got a headache all of a sudden. The thing. Ted's eyes rolled back and he collapsed. Hey! Jack yelled. He grabbed the fallen paramedic and rolled over him. He checked breathing, then pulse. Finding none, Jack started chest compressions. Get the defib! Nancy took one running step towards the ambulance and fell onto the sidewalk. Mitch was by her side in a second. What's going on? He yelled. Get her into the ambulance. It's got to be a virus, Drew called, rushing to Jack's side. Something from the hospital that got out. Get your mask back on. Maybe it's the meteor dust closing lungs, Jack suggested. No, they would have been coughing, Drew answered. Mitch pulled Nancy into the ambulance and scrambled to get his air mask back on. The sound of a helicopter echoed off the buildings. Drew looked up, but the dust blocked it out. I don't know, maybe. Hey, let go! Jack pulled against the hand that grabbed his foot. The woman he had just checked lay still except for his hand. His arm moved back and forth until it found Jack's foot again, and the fingers closed. Again, Jack pulled free. Their radios crackled. Attention New York City rescue personnel. The meteor has released a biohazard. Do not approach ground zero. I repeat, do not approach ground zero under any circumstances. The hospital and surrounding area is now quarantined. Units next to the hospital, make your way to the roof by the fire escape. The helicopter will pick you up. The 4 firemen exchanged looks. I don't know about this, Mitch said. On the ground, all of the bodies began moving their arms in unison. The crew backed up against the wall, watching the street full of people waving their arms. A woman pushed herself up into a crab walk and began a slow backward walk across the street. Another man pulled himself into a sitting position, his head still limply resting on his shoulder, and began scooting himself towards the firemen. Let's get out of here, Jack said. They ran to the nearest fire escape and worked together to pull down the stairs. All together, the people in the street began crawling on their hands and knees. As the firemen reached the first platform, the stairs lifted. They breathed a sigh of relief and began trudging their way to the top. As they climbed out of the dust cloud, they saw the Loom Corps helicopter circling the building. The fire crew felt a sense of relief every time it came around, showing them that it hadn't left. Sully tried his radio. NYFD to Loom Corps chopper. We are coming as fast as we can. Do you guys have enough fuel to wait on us? Roger that. Call me Vince. I have a full tank. We aren't going to leave you guys. Several floors up, Mitch, who was in the lead, grabbed his head. Mitch, you okay? Drew asked. Mitch began, turning back to look at his team. His legs gave out. He pitched forward and hit the stairs. Mitch! Drew yelled, grabbing Mitch by the arm. He shook his friend, trying to wake him, but got no response. The helicopter circled again. Vince to NYFD. Did your man take his mask off? The radio chirped. Yes, what can we do for him? Drew asked his radio. There was a pause before the radio crackled again, and a new voice said, I'm sorry, it's too late. We can't leave him, said Jack. You guys need to get out of here, the new voice said. Something in the tone made them listen. Out of breath, Drew, Jack, and Sully reached the roof. The helicopter hovered low, and the back door opened. A man threw out a large bag. Set up the pop-up tent. All 3 of you need to cram in. Hit the red button, the radio said. You will feel a static shock. It will detonate. It will decontaminate you. I hope not detonate. Then we can pick you up.
It will detonate you.
I hope not. Don't take any electronics into the tent. Sully hesitated, eyeing the bag with suspicion. You don't want to stay here, do you? Drew said, pulling it open. The tent sprang up. It was a little more than 4 thin metal hoops with thin fabric stretched across it. Inside had an ominous-looking black ball with a red button. The 3 men looked at each other, then dropped their phones, radios, watches, and anything else they could think of before squeezing in. You ready? Jack asked, looking between his companions. Drew reached up and pressed the button. There was a beep, and then a mild jolt. Well, that was only about as bad as a licking a 9-volt, Jack said. They could hear the chopper coming. They could hear the chopper coming in for a landing. The wind whipped the flimsy tent around. They lifted it off them and it blew away. The back door was open. The man who had thrown the bag was beckoning them in. The 3 ran across the roof and climbed in. They were surprised to find the helicopter full. Men in military uniforms, all wearing generals' insignia and respirators, took up most of the seats. They shuffled the 3 firemen in the middle seats as the craft lifted off and circled once more. Mr. Kit, one general said, you mentioned there was no cure. Is there no way to remove the invader from the host? Oh, there is a way to get it out, but it's usually too late by then, the man who had been thrown the bag answered. The act of taking control of the host causes irreversible damage to the brain and kills the host. If they are lucky, they are dead long before the invader has gotten halfway into position. What about before it starts trying to take control? You can shock them or hit them with an EMP pulse or pass them through an energy field. That's how we cleaned off these guys. As long as they haven't started hacking away at the brain, people can make a full recovery. They are very sensitive to magnets as well. Remember, they are very small and delicate robots. It is easy to overload their circuits. I'm sorry, what is hacking away at people's brains? Drew asked. Classified, snapped the general to his left. Just try to ignore this conversation, please. Kit pointed out the window. All of the generals followed his gaze. The people visible on the streets outside of the cloud were all standing up and beginning to walk, keeping their knees straight. Like I told you, once one figures out a better way to move, they all get the information and copy it. Kit narrated the scene below them. Somewhere, one has figured out how to walk. They'll figure out how to move their knees soon enough. It will probably take a while before they learn how to run. Unless we get to the core before that, they are going to get harder to contain. I think we've seen enough, a general said. The others nodded. You have our authorization, Kit. I hope your people are as good as you promised. Kit smiled. Trust me, they are. So there you go. Words for Joel.
What?
I gotta say, I did not see the nanobots coming. This looked like, a standard zombie plot.
Right.
But then you brought in the nanobots. That reminded me of that one episode of the Justice League Unlimited with the Darkheart.
Oh, I love that episode.
Yeah, this
as
was
long
the
as they
same
don't
story.
Get around the trench. What trench?
Yeah, this is the same story that he read from last time that he was on, with the aliens trying the different foods and stuff and all that, those things that happen. This is the same story. This is, I believe, earlier. Could be later. I don't think it is. I think it's earlier. He would know more than I do, but yeah, this is that same story. Very cool idea. I love the technological alien nanobots thing he's got going on. Hello, Alex.
Hey, Alex.
Hello.
Yeah, but Joel, whenever he tells a story, he creates this really interesting mosaic, and he pulls from all these different things. Aliens, zombies, nanobots, none of these things to me, it doesn't feel like it fits but it does,
Mhm.
and I don't know how he does it. It's the dialogue is all punchy. I can't say I follow the plot as closely, but I enjoy what bits I do get.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, I didn't have time to get the voices down or anything like that, so I was just kind of flying, and he has so many characters, it's hard for me to keep up with. That's one thing, but I feel like over the course of a novel, he more than makes up for it, you know?
Yeah, I need to definitely read his stuff.
It's very realistic, very visceral. Like, for a while, I was listening to it and thinking, this sounds like, is he just retelling 9/11? What is this? What's going on here?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that
random statement. Statement. Brendan, you would look really weird bald. Anyway.
Another weird one. Alex, are you driving?
Yes, Alex is driving. He does this regularly.
Quite regularly.
So, one of the things that I'll point out too with Joel's story is I have always said his stuff sounds like if Joss Whedon had an editing pass over a Roland Emmerich film. So, like,
I really want to
say that again. Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon had an editing pass over a Roland Emmerich film, like the Independence Day or Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah.
2012, which is a massively underrated movie.
What? Independence Day?
Independence Day is slightly underrated. 2012 is massively underrated. It is actually a very good movie.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Any which way, Brendan, were you saying something? Hello, Kirith.
I was just showing off my amazing wife, who has been working hard writing but doesn't want to share.
Well,
that's okay.
I haven't finished my Zero draft.
Okay, not a problem. We just like you being here. It's very nice.
Hold on.
I like that Joel used a lot of different names because I tend to get a lot of characters, and I like an example of someone making that work. And I was just like, whoa! He just kept naming the characters, and I was like, wow, I'm actually keeping track.
Nice.
Yep.
I can't even do that.
So Kirith will not be sharing. Alex, will you be sharing this evening or no?
I am driving, so
I didn't think so. I was just making sure. So, anyways, wait. All right.
You could just start doing some like free verse or improv or something.
I mean, I can sing Mojave song by Miracle of Sound, but I didn't write that.
I've been
I don't want to
singing
get copyrights.
I've been singing the old triangle a lot recently. The old like Celtic blues. I'm in prison. Woe is me song. I don't know why.
That one, yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
I could also sing some Brian Savay stuff if we wanted. Because I don't think he'll copy strike us.
Oh boy. All right. So, do we want a Wilson next? What do we guys think?
Yeah. I mean,
Wilsons are always good.
Yes.
Wilsons, you can thumb wrestle for it.
me first. I call dibs on next. Whoever Wilson goes, I call dibs on next.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So, this is I have my novella Heart of the Stars, which is a youth novella. It's written for like 9 to 12-year-olds. Whereas most of my other, this is the one with Eddie. I can either read what I wrote and rewrote in chapter 1. I can read chapter 1 and chapter 2, or I could just read chapter 1. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
Deafening silence. Clip it.
No, I know
I had to press a button. It's the Inception. It's the
like
Inception
the Hans Zimmer
womp.
zoom.
Yeah, it's the Inception
Yes, it is
womp.
the Inception. You read chapter 1 already, right?
Well, I read part of chapter 1. I wrote a bunch more in it since then. So I don't know how long it's going to take. If you want me to skip right to chapter 2, I can do that.
I mean, I
got to read chapter 1 because I got to read chapter 1 because I have to introduce you to Azariah.
Okay, let's do that.
Excellent name. I have a brother named Azariah.
I have a character in a novel named Azariah. That's crazy.
I know no one named Azariah.
Nor do I, sir.
And my axe? I don't know.
Thank you, TK. What's that?
That's
right.
Excellent timing, as always.
Nice.
So here is Heart of the Stars. I'm going to start like in the middle of chapter 1 since I read the first part of chapter 1 last week. I have it nicely divided with little dividers in the chapters. So
this is the one with the cat, right?
Yeah, this is the one with the cat.
Awesome.
The accidental cat.
Yes, the accidental cat, which has become basically
the cat that was measured with your heart.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
No. Yes, go.
The state of Vermont is not known for having perfect April afternoons. More often than not, it's either snowing or worse, freezing rain. Spring comes rather late compared to other parts of the country. You're probably shocked by the fact that there are places where snow is not only possible but likely in the month of April, but this is the case in much of the Northeast. In fact, it has been known to snow occasionally in May, but I digress. This was one of those extremely rare, ideal April afternoons. The sun was bright and cheery, the temperature was warm enough that one could go out in a t-shirt. The birds were singing. Having completed his studies, Eddie Small had decided to go out and enjoy the weather. Eddie, you see, was one of the rare and exotic breed of children known as homeschoolers. Dr. Andrew, fully disgusted with the state of education in America, decided he could do a better job educating his child by himself. He was gung-ho on the idea, and so they taught Eddie at home. It was an ideal arrangement for Eddie, as he had time and ability to pursue his own interests, such as art, music, and playing Dungeons and Dragons. That day he would ride his bicycle. This was what freedom felt like, 2 tires on the road and the wind on his face. It was about that time of day when his best friend, Bucky Towns, came home from school. "Bucky!" called Eddie to the boy as he left the bus. Dropping his backpack in the garage, Bucky grabbed his bicycle and rode out. The two raced to the end of the street, where was a park where they liked to play. "I win," said Eddie. "You always win," protested Bucky playfully. "Not all the time," said Eddie. "You can shoot a basket way better than I can." "That's because you play basketball like a nearsighted pig," joked Bucky. They both had a good laugh at the boy's remark. Their friendship had grown to the point where these barbs meant basically nothing, and they could both laugh at their own expense. "Okay, best 2 out of 3, said Eddie. "First one to the swing set and back wins." "Deal," said Bucky. The 2 boys set their feet and booked it for the swing set. They then ran for the spot where they started. Eddie first, followed shortly thereafter by Bucky, puffing and panting. "Again," said Bucky. And away they went. On the return journey, however, Bucky tripped in a hole and fell on his face. Eddie stepped and helped him off the ground. Bucky then took off for the fence line, leaving Eddie in his dust. "No fair," laughed Eddie. "Let's settle this like men," said Bucky. "Did you bring them?" Eddie unzipped his backpack and drew forth 2 plastic toy swords. Handing one to Bucky, the 2 instantly commenced to a fierce sword fight there in the playground. Up and down the wooden castle structure they fought. The fight caught the attention of both children and adults in the park who paused to watch the impressive duel. Indeed, the boys fought with the skill and daring of grown men. I don't suppose you've ever seen The Adventures of Robin Hood starring Errol Flynn, but there is a scene near the end of the movie where Robin Hood has a sword fight with Sir Guy of Gisborne as portrayed by Basil Rathbone. It was something similar to that. "It's over, Eddie," said Bucky. "I have the high ground." "There's something I should show you, Bucky," said Eddie as Bucky was beginning to gain the upper hand. "What's that?" asked the boy. "I am not left-handed."
Yes.
Eddie
I love it.
Here, vaulted over one of the wooden walls and caught the toy weapon in his right hand. Bucky was too astonished to react to this development and simply paused dumbfounded as his friend thrust the sword toward Bucky's throat. "Give up?" asked Eddie. "Yes," said Bucky with a sigh, dropping his weapon. The other children on the playground clapped and cheered. The boys bowed, descending the jungle gym. It was then that a loud, obnoxious voice arrested their attention. Here we introduce one of the antagonists. "Hey, small brain," called the voice. Eddie turned around slowly to face his arch nemesis, Thorwald Van Horn. Thorwald was rather big for his age and somewhat overweight. His tousled, dirty blonde hair lay in a mop on his Neanderthal-like brow. His face seemed to be locked in a permanent scowl unless he was tormenting someone else. By his side walked two of his minions, both more ugly and riddled with acne than Thorwald. "What do you want, Thorwald?" asked Eddie. "You want to play here, you gotta pay the toll," said Thorwald. "More like pay the troll," remarked Bucky with a smirk. "Listen, beaver face," sneered Thorwald. "You better shut your mouth before I shove it in the sandbox where the cats take a dump." "Would you like that?" Bucky scowled. "It'd be better than looking at your ugly mug," remarked Eddie. "Oh, we got us a funny boy," said Thorwald. "That'll cost you double." "I don't owe you anything," said Bucky. "What's that around your neck?" asked Thorwald. Said Eddie. "Let me see it," demanded Thorwald. "No." "Why?" asked Thorwald. "It was a gift from my mom," said Eddie. "Oh, a gift from his mommy," sneered Thorwald. His two minions snickered like hyenas about to go in for the kill. "Hand it over." "Nope," said Eddie calmly. "I said..." Thorwald's sentence was cut short by a sudden impact of a plastic sword between his legs. He buckled, cursing and clutching his nether region. He apparently didn't notice, or didn't care, that Eddie was still armed. The sword, though plastic, got the point across. The boys broke into a run, racing to their bikes and hopping on them as fast as they could. Paul's minions were hot on their tail. They raced out of the park on their bicycles at top speed. They rode to their secret place by the riverbed, where they finally stopped. "You think they saw us?" asked Eddie. "Nah," replied Bucky. "We smoked them like cheap cigars." "What does that even mean?" asked Eddie. "I don't know," replied Bucky. "It's something I heard my dad say." As they nestled down within their fortress of foliage, they heard a thrashing among the vegetation. Despite Bucky's assurances, Thorwald's henchmen did in fact see them enter. Eddie and Bucky backed away toward the river. One, a wiry, pimpled lad, was armed with a baseball bat. "What do you even want from us?" asked Eddie. "We've done nothing to you." "You humiliated Thorwald," growled the one boy, brandishing his bat. "Now you gotta pay for real." "He was asking for it," shouted Bucky. The pimpled kid wound up, ready to strike Bucky when he suddenly lost his footing and rolled headlong into the muddy riverbank. The other suddenly felt an object impact his midsection and joined his partner in the mud. Once the two were able to regain their footing, he looked up into the eyes of an old man with a long stick in his hand. "Who the heck are you?" asked the muddied young men. "Who am I?" asked the old man. "What a peculiar question to ask. I could ask you the same thing." "Why'd you do that?" asked the other boy with the bat. "Why not?" asked the old man. It seemed like you were about to harm these two boys. Couldn't stand idly by and allow that. Now, why don't you two go off to wherever it was you came from, and we can forget this whole affair ever happened, eh? The two young men stared at the old one for a few moments, deciding whether it was worth it to contend with him. Suddenly, the old man barked like a dog. The bullies ran off to the sound of uproarious laughter from the old man. "This isn't over," called the pimpled lad behind him. "You bet it's not," said Bucky. "You tell that butt-faced baboon Thorwald that he can go give himself a swirly." Is that really necessary? What? Asked Eddie. No, replied the old man. But it's a free country, and it was funny. Thorwald.
Nice.
Thorwald's probably going to make our lives even more miserable now, groaned Eddie. Not on my watch, said the elder. The man sat down on an old tree stump. It was difficult to tell his age for certain. To some he looked to be in his 70s. Others thought he was in his late 50s. Some thought he was in his 60s. His turquoise eyes twinkled with a youthful light. His skin was brown and weathered by wind and sun. His long beard and hair were pure white as a newborn lamb. He looked like a man out of time, at once a leftover hippie from the 1960s and something far older. To Eddie he seemed like a sage of some far-off desert kingdom of the distant past, like one of the wise men who brought gifts to Jesus. Bucky, however, saw him more as the wizard Gandalf from his favorite books, The Lord of the Rings. His clothes were loose-fitting and had been patched and repaired many times with colorful fabrics. A band of paisley fabric was wound around his head. Around his neck hung many necklaces of wooden beads, shells, and various medallions. In his right hand he carried an old walking stick of some amber-colored wood. Strange symbols were etched into it. The old leather sandals on his feet looked almost as worn and weathered as his face. In all, the man seemed odd and out of place. "Who are you?" asked Eddie. "I've gone by many names," said the man, "but you may call me Azariah." "You may call me Bucky," said Bucky. "I don't think we should tell him our names," hissed Eddie. "We don't know him." "I know your names already," said Azariah. "I know that you are Edward Small, son of Dr. Andrew Small, Ph.D., professor of astronomy at the University of Vermont." "How do you know all that?" asked Eddie, placing his hands on his hips. "Same as how I know about your nightmares. The cat told me." "You mean Fred?" said Eddie, incredulous. "Who did you think I was talking about?" replied Azariah. "Of course, Fred, though he prefers to be called Lord of the Thunder. Pretentious, I know, but he has a flair for the dramatic."
What?
Cat named Fred that prefers to be called what?
Zeus, Lord of the Thunder.
Love that.
"How do you know that?" asked Eddie. "I speak cat." "You're crazy," said Eddie. "What do you know about my nightmares?" asked Eddie. Why do I have those separated? Sorry, editing moment.
You're fine.
"I know that they're more than just nightmares," said Azariah. "The arachnoids are quite real, and you are quite right to be frightened of them." "Wait, what?" blurted Eddie. "They wander the dark corners of the universe, seeking their next meal, never sated, always restless, devouring whole planets and stars," said the old man with a faraway look in his eyes. "What do they want with me?" asked Eddie. Azariah seemed to snap back into the present moment. He had a strange look in his eye as he looked at Eddie, as though he was seeing an old friend for the first time in years. And he squinted at the boy. "What's that you've got around your neck?" asked the elder. Eddie looked down, grasping the meteor fragment in his right hand like a drowning man might grasp a rope. "My parents gave it to me," said Eddie, "and nothing more." "Peculiar gift," said the odd man. We should really be going, said Bucky as he started to drag his friend away. It was nice talking to you, Mr. Azariah, but our parents are expecting us. A word of warning, said Azariah. The boys paused. Never enter the cave on the east side of the hill. Thank you, sir, said Eddie. The boys then mounted their bikes and rode back to Eddie's house. Eddie kept playing the bizarre incident over and over. Maybe Azariah was crazy or lying. But if that were true, how did he know about Eddie's nightmares, or his cat, Fred, or his father's job? It really made sense. I imagine if some stranger walked up to you out of the blue and started talking about dreams no one knew about, you would be a bit frightened yourself. Eddie had the impression that Azariah knew far more than he was letting on, that the man had seen things so strange and wonderful that Eddie had no way of imagining them. He also believed that Azariah was far more powerful than he appeared. There seemed to be something big about him, like the flesh and clothes that he saw were just a covering or veil for a being of immense wisdom and power. All these thoughts played on Eddie's mind as he and Bucky played. Now that's the end of chapter 1. If you want, I can read chapter 2.
Let's save it for next time. That is fantastic. Right. Good gracious.
It was so good. That was so good.
Reminds me of? You know what it reminds me of? Just the narration style, pretty much. It reminds me particularly of how Patrick Warburton narrated the Lemony Snicket show on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
I know that's like really specific, but like that's what it reminds me of. I've never read Lemony Snicket and I've never seen the movie, right? But like the way Patrick Warburton did it, I only saw like half of that show. But the way Patrick Warburton did it, like that's what I hear as you're narrating. It's like Patrick Warburton's level of like sarcasm and stuff. It's so good.
I'm basically, some of you may or may not be familiar with Dean Koontz, but I'm basically imitating Dean Koontz.
Gotcha.
I can't say that rings a bell, but that's fine.
I've heard the name. I have never read anything by him.
Oh my gosh. Dean Koontz is like the C.S. Lewis of thrillers.
Okay.
He is so good. Like,
what's like the top 3 books and what's the one that you can't not read?
You have to read his Odd Thomas series. You have to.
Okay.
That's just it's a given.
That does sound familiar.
His Frankenstein novels are good. You should also, the Odd Thomas movie is actually very good and very faithful to the book.
Cool.
It's quite good.
Familiar.
His Frankenstein novels I've heard are very good. I haven't read them, but my father has. One Door Away from Heaven. That book will, by the middle of it, you're basically emotionally destroyed, and then at the end, it's like, yes, payoff. The bad guy gets his. The good guy lives happily ever after. The alien demon things go back to hell or wherever it was they came from. Everything is right with the world. It's such a good book.
The other thing that it kind of reminds me of, and this is more due to like the kind of fiction you're going after, I think, it has a very small amount of, and I know you it's either you or someone else who dreads McGee and Me, Bill Myers, but not McGee and Me specifically. His Wally McDougal series is what it reminds me more so of. That was a book series. My Life as a ... smash burrito with extra hot sauce was the first one. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah.
Okay. So, may I make some comments?
Duh.
No, that is not allowed.
Okay. Once again, take this with 1,000 pounds of salt. You know what you're trying to do. There were a couple of things that kind of bugged me. I like the overall structure of the story. Let's start with that. I like the events. I like the order of the events. There are just a couple of things in the way you tell them that I kind of question. The two big ones were when the boys are doing a race, right? You have, as a general rule, you tend to tell events. Like, let's race to there. And then they did it. And then they ran to the fence, and then they ran back. It's, at the risk of sounding rude, it's a little redundant. And now this might be the style you're going for, and if it is, great, you nailed it. But personally, I would rather focus more on Bucky running out of breath as they run than mention that they got to the swings, turned around, and ran back, right? Does that make sense?
Okay.
Pumping with exertion,
personal,
etc. Yeah.
Yeah. The
show don't tell kind of thing.
The other thing is your description of the old man of Azrael, or whatever his name is.
Azariah.
I think you could spread out that description a little bit more, because you have, he's like a hippie, he's like this, and then you get into Eddie thought he looked like this, but to Bucky he looked like this. I would try to stretch out that description. You don't have to get rid of any of it. You might want to get rid of
the dialogue, like alternate dialogue and description, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. Give a little bit of description. Give Eddie's point of view. Then they or give Eddie and Bucky's point of view, like that part at the beginning. Then have a bit of dialogue. Then change the description slightly. Like, oh, now after this conversation, he's reminding us. After this part of the conversation, he's kind of like this. Then another description. Then right.
I'm gonna actually disagree there.
Okay.
I really like having the descriptors. This is what he looked like, and then jumping back to the kid's perspective of he reminded him of this. He reminded him of this. I think that worked pretty well.
Again. But then he adds a third thing afterward.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just like, I feel like it's too much, and then it's that you tell, and then you tell like this is what it's like, and then it was so. And I think that at the after the fact, right, when you're going through Eddie's mind, is like, was he a being from beyond? Well, you know he's a being from beyond. We know he's a being from beyond because you told us he's a being from beyond. And now you have Eddie jumping to that conclusion a little quickly, in my opinion. Maybe drag that
it's
out.
Not working
have
button.
Him go through the whole.
Go ahead. You're fine.
What?
I'm just trying to press a button that's not buttoning. That's all. Here we go. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to throw a bunch of this at you because, again, you have a really good, you've got a really good story. You've got really good events. You've got really good, sequence of things. And you just said that you were trying to imitate a particular author's style. And I don't know that author's style. So you might have just nailed it on the head, and I'm missing the point because I haven't read that. I don't know what that's like, and that might not even be my cup of tea, right?
Attention, soldiers of creativity, fall out for a commercial break.
I'm Ian Wilson, and I create graphic art using primarily traditional methods, supplementing with digital where it's needed. I use a real pen, a real paper, a real graphite to make my art. I like to feel my art. I've always been this way. I love the feeling of a pen or pencil in my hand, the sound of graphite scratching paper, and I love the sight of a nice black line making its way across the page. So why choose traditional art over digital? Traditional art has an organic, natural quality that seems to be missing from most digital illustrations. The illustrated books and comics that were made in the days before digital have an excellence and staying power that is just as vibrant now as it was decades ago. These are the stories that stay with you. Dr. Seuss, Winnie the Pooh, Where the Wild Things Are. People still read these. I'm currently working on my own graphic novel series, Legend of the Swordbearer, and I've also had the privilege to draw graphics for 2 motion comic series, along with illustrations for a small magazine, Logosophia magazine, and various book covers. Don't let traditional art fade into the dust. Help me keep it alive. You won't regret it. Visit my website at ianthomaswilson.com for more info.
Attention all Christian writers and creative peoples! Are you searching for a place to share your work and receive encouragement from fellow wordsmiths? Look no further than the Broodcast. Inspired by the legendary Inklings of old, a group of writers who banded together during the Second Great War. The Broodcast is your monthly gathering for inspiration, fellowship, and critique. Join us as we share our stories and support our fellow soldiers on our creative missions. Enlist in the Broodcast community today at joshuadavidling.com/brood. Travel cyberspace. Serve the greatest cause. Join the ranks of the Brood today. Attention, brave soldiers of artistry, rally together as we resume our poetic march on Poets at War.
Like that's why I'm like, this is what I think, but feel free to like don't hear this as me going, you're bad. No, you're good. You got good stuff. Fred the cat is hilarious. The fact that the cat wants to be called Zeus, the Lord of Thunder,
and then
is
it's
such
just
a cat
casually,
thing.
and then it's just casually in there that he is Azariah who speaks to cats, right?
Yes, Azariah speaks to cat.
And the
It's
Star Wars
so good.
prequel thing, and the Princess Bride thing,
And the Princess
It's just-
Bride.
Come
Oh,
on, go ahead thing. All of that.
I
That
knew
whole
all
dialogue.
of those references.
it was so good.
Yeah, your
I
fight
missed a lot
scenes
of the
hilarious.
references, but I'm sure once I get the chance to like see it, I'll be like, oh, bang.
Yeah, that fight scene was hilarious.
Yep.
It was amazing.
I
So
love that.
okay,
It's a free
Yeah.
country, and it was fun.
that line was unbelievable.
I have a whiteboard of funny things that have been said thus far, and it's just the Wilsons.
There you
Uh-huh.
go. All right.
It's as soon as this book goes on sale, I'm going to get it for my brothers
Definitely.
because they would love it.
Yep. All right. Brendan called next. I'm going to say Daniel, then TK, then Aaron. If everyone's cool with that order right now, we'll stick to it. And if things change, things change. But that's what it'll be right now. So we're going to go to Brendan next. Brendan, you ready?
Yeah, I am. So I have decided to show. I'm going to share the last scene of episode 1 that I finished. The thing that concerns me about this is, does the scene I don't want to necessarily say follow logically. Does the scene follow believably from what the characters are as we have established them? Because I think you guys have gotten a decent enough establishment of who these characters are over the course of my sharing. This is this is the Aram Ava story, a Gardner Angel whole thing. So for context, this is after the big fight with the Hellhound. They are the village has this massive dog that's blocking their road. How are they going to solve this problem? Well, they can't just bury it. That would take a long time. Instead, they decide to hold a bonfire. So they bring the dog out into one of the blighted fields and they burn it there. As this is happening, Ava notices that some of the sap from the tree that was blighted when the dog landed on it was kind of black and it dripped onto the ground. She tosses the fire in. She looks where the sap dripped and the plant that it landed on became blighted. She realized I write in cue Ava figuring stuff out music. That's like a line in the thing because I have about as subtle as a brick through a window when it comes to script writing and direction. And so she grabs the log and the plant, and she basically sprints back to the house. So, okay. So this is going to be the entire ending scene. I hope it's not that long. But it's about 7 pages. So please bear with me. Interior Ava's hut night. Aram sits on the bed he has been sleeping in, muttering to himself. He is slowly turning the broken and dull-looking sword in his hand as he does. After a moment of pause, he sighs. Aram, quietly in angelic, subtitled question mark, what must I do? He hears Ava coming before he sees her. He looks up at the door just before she bursts in. She power walks over to her desk. Aram stands. Aram, Ava, cutting him off. Not now. Taken aback, Aram watches as Ava begins to pull out a bunch of vials from her satchel, including all 3 of the vials/flasks that Jasper left with the elders. She pulls out some alchemical instruments and she begins to heat the log, far enough away that it doesn't ignite, but enough for it to start to weep the black sap. She collects this sap in a vial. She drops some of the sap into the normal plant that Jasper brought and watches. There's a brief pause. I can't read. There's a brief pause, but then the sap is absorbed by the leaves and the leaves wither first, followed by the stem being blighted. She pulls out the next vial, which contains the blighted plant that was somewhat revitalized. When she pours the sap in, the effects reverse, though less than expected. She takes out the third vial, the one with the healthy plant, and pours the sap into it. Nothing happens for a beat, then 2. Ava slumps and begins to despair. She starts to sniff, trying to hold herself together. But the events of the day and all of the built-up stress just cause her to slump down, putting her head in her hands/arms. She does a soft sob until she starts hearing the fizzing and foaming sound coming from the vial. The plant's roots are frothing and foaming. It turns from a lively green to a disgusting vomit green mixed with purple, and the plant itself seems to be writhing. It is blighting faster than before, however, it's keeping its full frame rather than withering. The plant itself changes, and when it is all done, more of the dark liquid sap seems to drip from the flower petals. Ava stands up and backs away from the plant. She pauses for a moment, then slowly moves forward and picks it up. Ava, what happened? Aram suddenly grabs the plant in the flask. Ava, wait, no! Aram, without pausing, throws the flask into the fire, causing it to shatter. There's a high-pitched whistle as the plant bursts into flames, sparking purple sparks. Ava, desperation, what are you doing? Why? Aram, meddle not in the affairs of other realms. Ava, angry, well, your other realms are causing my village to die. This was my one chance to fix it, and you just threw it away. Aram looks away. Ava, confronting Aram now. What is this, Aram? Aram looks at her, but says nothing. Ava, I need you to tell me. Aram, I cannot tell you. Ava, can't or won't? Aram looks away. Ava, you've seen our fields. You've seen our crops. Every time I make progress, something would happen, and I would have to rethink everything. As she talks, Ava gets more intense, which is rather unlike her, but she's finally letting her frustration out. Ava, and finally, after the elders went above my head because I wasn't solving the problems fast enough, I get a major discovery about this blight and how it works, and you go and destroy it. Ava raises her arm to hit Aram, but she doesn't swing. She just stands there with her arms raised and lowers her head, trying to fight back the tears. Aram, I had to do my duty. Ava, accusative. Duty. It's all about duty with you. You wouldn't have saved me if it wasn't for your duty. I should probably rephrase that. Aram remains quiet, his face still stoic. Ava, so what are you, destroyer of plants? Killer of big dogs? Aram, I already told you, I cannot say. Ava, why? Is this blight made by something is this blight something your city made? Erm, angry, involuntarily. No, never. There's a pause of silence. Ava, it's from your enemy, isn't it? Erm looks down. The wolf, that thing. You called it a loyal beast. It served your enemies, didn't it? Ava is shorter than Erm, so it's easy for her to get under his face and look up into his eyes, even though he looks away. Ava, you knew what that thing was. That wasn't giantism, was it? Erm looks at her, then looks away. Ava. And the blight, it came from the log when the dog bled on it. That dog caused blight. She tries to go around Erm to look at him. He turns his face to avoid looking at her. Ava, why won't you tell me? Why can't you tell me? Erm, no one would believe you. This is the first answer Ava has gotten. She watches as Erm turns his back to her, taking a few steps away, staring down at his sword. Ava reaches up to touch his shoulder or his face, unsure right now, but then hesitates and puts her arm down as she says, well, they've already chosen to go beyond me, so how could it get much worse? Erm glances at her, almost a hint of softness in his eyes, for the briefest of seconds. But then he looks away again. Ava's brow furrows, and quickly she snatches up Erm's sword. Erm tries to reach for it, but Ava jumps back and away from him. Erm, hard. Give it back. Ava, no, I don't think I will. Erm, ma'am, you have no use for it. Return it to me. Ava, well, I don't see how a soldier can have use for a broken blade. I could at least use it to harvest plants at least. Erm, I'm warning you, return my blade. Ava, or what? I know you won't hurt me. Erm just stares. Everyone's worried for me. They think that you would hurt me to get what you wanted, but you wouldn't. Erm, and why would you say that? Ava stops and stares. She doesn't know how she knows, but she knows that she's right. Ava, I've always had good instincts about people. Erm looks deep into her eyes, and though his eyes are hard, hers are just as fierce, even with the tears that have welled up in them. Finally, he relents and looks back at the fire. Erm, so, you cannot save your village, and I cannot return home. Ava pauses as she looks at him. Could you? Or Ava, could you? Erm, could I what? Ava, could you save my village? Erm considers it. Erm, I myself do not have the power to heal your land. After a pause, it's Ava's turn to look away from Erm. However, that does not mean there isn't a cure. Ava looks up hopefully. She waits for Erm to continue, but he is deep in thought. Ava, what is the cure? What do I need to get? Erm, there is no native plant that can cure what you have aptly named the blight. Nor do I know any remedies for this. Nor do I know any remedies for it. I need to change that. That is beyond my knowledge. And the only one who may know what to do, and the only ones who may know what to do are not here. Ava steps closer. You're home. Erm looks at her and nods. Erm, the greatest of healers resides within the walls of my city. He would know. Ava, then it's settled. Erm looks confused. You can't return home, and I can't heal my village. So I will bring you home, and your healer will tell me what I must do. Erm, even if I could bring you, or somehow guide you, I cannot guarantee that you will be given what you seek. Ava, well, after destroying that plant, this is my last chance at solving this. And given your state, I think I think I'm your only shot at getting back now, no? Ava holds out Erm's sword to him, hilt first. Erm looks at her, then the sword, then back to her. Finally, he takes it. Erm, the journey will be long and harder than you think. Ava, determined, hiding happiness that things are finally getting somewhere. Ava, I've been fighting this blight alone for the past 3 seasons. The change of pace will be nice. Erm, I cannot guarantee your safety. Ava, and I can't guarantee we won't get lost on the way. Aram, be serious, Ava. There may be more of those hounds. I cannot afford to have dead weight to care for. Ava, feisty. Didn't I just say something about carrying you? You felt like a lot of dead weight then. Aram growls, but since Ava has figured out that he won't hurt her, his growl seems empty. Finally, he sighs and turns away. Very well. If you return me to my city, I will ask the High Healer. I will ask that the High Healer would show. I need to rephrase that. I will ask that the High Healer would show you the cure. Ava has a shocked, I can't believe that worked look on her face, then pulls herself together. Ava, all right. Aram turns around and watches as she starts to gather her things. He seems somewhat surprised by the sudden change of feeling. What are you doing? Ava, I have to collect things. As you aren't in any shape for serious travel, so I will have to patch you up on the way. Aram stands somewhat awkwardly, unsure of what to do. Ava notices and points to his cot. Go, sleep. You said the journey was long. There's a pause, then Aram goes over and sits on the cot. Aram, when do we leave? Ava turns, looks at him, a new fire in her eyes. We leave before dawn. Roll the intro. The end of episode 1.
Very, very cool. Not more character work this time. Just it seemed like it was just them talking.
Yep.
To answer the question that you started out with, yes, I think that everything that happened there flows very naturally from what we know of the rest of the characters. It was never strenuous to believe that the characters that we've heard about in the rest of episode 1 would say or do the things that happened here. It all seemed very much in line with the characters.
Yay, success. Now I just have to go back and rewrite all the previous scenes so that it works.
I think it works extremely well, but you know this because we've been working on it. He and I have been doing work together in video chat on Thursday nights, and I'd encourage you guys, you may have noticed in the sidebar of the Brood Discord, we now have, and I haven't made an announcement, but I guess this is the announcement because I don't really have a whole lot else to do. Chapter 4 is now writers' rooms. We have some specifically labeled rooms, voice rooms, for people who want to have their stuff worked on and work together on their stuff. The Lewis room, the Tolkien room, the Chesterton room, the Mullins room, and the Peterson room, the Lawhead room, and the Austin room. Some of them you might not see because they are private by request to Alex. He can gain you access so that you can have a private room that you control for the duration of your project in order to invite specific people. Whereas the open rooms are, for anybody. Alex, did you have anything further on that, or is that about everything?
I'm going to have an official announcement post that explains exactly how everything is going to work. But I've been kind of busy and haven't been able to actually write that down yet.
Right, but for now, I don't have a problem with people using.
For now, that is exactly what it is.
Yeah, so at least the open rooms you guys can use right now if you end up wanting to just pop in there, throw the message out to the Green Dragon bar and the messenger, thread and say, hey, does anyone want to help me jump in, and we can help each other work on our stuff. But Brendan has needed a lot of help, and he's helped me on some of my stuff too, and it's been really good. Yes, I phrased it that way because you phrased it that way, sir, a while ago.
Yeah, I know. I was like, Brendan has needed a lot of help, and I'm not qualified to give him the help he needs, but I can help him with writing.
It's true. Very true. Oh boy. Hello, Debbie. Did you have some and Abigail? Did you guys have things to share tonight?
I did not. I've not really had the chance to work on any more of my stuff.
Okay.
I did have a note. What's it?
Okay.
It's a small one.
Abigail, if you can hear me, just let me know when you can. If you have something to share tonight. I think you said you did in the messenger, if I remember correctly. So, anything else for Brendan before we move on to Daniel?
Ian, do you want to tear my thing apart? Since I kind of went to town on yours.
On guard.
Accidentally.
I did have one tiny little critique. I mean, it was a nice scene. I liked it a lot. I felt like she wouldn't have struck him right at that moment, or it had the impulse to be like punch somebody in the face. If she was going to punch somebody in the face, it would have been a little bit earlier, like right when he destroyed the thingamajig. I think that she would have gone after him then rather than later on. That felt like the wrong reaction. But other than that, it was great.
All right, fair.
Yeah, and I don't have access to my thing that I'm going to read, but I might in a few minutes, so I'll have to come back to that.
All right, we'll stand by on that. Ian, do you want to on guard?
Let me think. I don't really have any criticisms. To be perfectly honest, I don't have anything that would be a valuable criticism. I would say that it was some very good interplay with the characters. We get to see what each of the characters is made of. The only thing I could say is that maybe they seemed a bit too antagonistic toward each other. The girl especially. She seems like she's inherently trying to be a problem for the main character whose name escapes me.
Aram.
And Aram. See that I don't know why, but that name reminds me of my sister's character, Airwolf. So he seems very, very like he reminds me of Spock, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a criticism if that's what you're going for. If you're going for Vulcan just complete perfect stoicism, by all means, that's absolutely perfect. Then you nailed it. If that's not what you're going for, maybe take it in a different direction.
More or less. He gets angrier than Spock, but yeah. But Spock has his moments too, so.
Yes.
I think that the reason she's so antagonistic is, or at least I tried to get this across, like, well, she flat out says it, like, she has been dealing with this blight for the past, like, almost full year. She's been struggling to solve the problem. The elders have finally gone and tried to find a solution in a different location that wasn't her, right? And so
even though it's her job, yeah.
Even though it's her job, that was kind of a punch to the gut. And then she finally gets this wild, completely new thing, and Aram immediately destroys it because, well, for his, So I think she's antagonistic because, like I just made progress and you broke it, right? That's kind of what I was trying to get across. But then I was hoping that there would not necessarily be reconciliation, but like
understanding.
I guess understanding, yeah. Like Aram kind of understands her a bit, and she is starting to at least like. She's like, I guess, starting to understand, like, starting to realize what's going on. I was hoping that when she goes, like, when she asks him, what was it? Like, why can't you tell me? I was hoping that him saying no one would believe you would be like, would have a lot more weight to it than I think it does. It's just, yeah. Anyway, yeah. I'll take. Abigail's comment and your comment about her antagonist, like, I'll take that and sort of look at it again. Maybe it was a little too much. I don't know. But he is stoic, but he's stoic because he doesn't care most. Like he only cares if it. Sorry, what?
He has higher priorities.
Yeah, he thinks he has higher priorities.
Mhm.
It
So
it kind of reminded me.
Me or TK?
TK. Well, Ian's pointing to TK, so let's go with her first.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anybody talking. We got a lag.
Yeah, there's a quite a bit of lag, and to be fair, she did speak first, and she hasn't said anything all evening.
So he kind of gives me the vibe like Martian Manhunter does at that one point in the Justice League. I'm gonna cite Justice League again, where he's he's just been totally detached from humanity for so long that he doesn't really get what's going on. He's not being stoic and strident because he wants to be. He's just like, I don't know what to do with these people. I've never known what to do with these people. Someone needs to help me, or I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think the antagonism is bad per se. I'm just saying this. I mean, I would be pretty cheesed if I had been working hard on some project and some guy just stands up, rips it out of my hands, and throws it into a fire. I mean, you've seen me with, Al Sweater version 6. If some rando had grabbed the sweater and thrown it into a fire that I'd been working on, and I'm just like, dude, I'd want to punch somebody.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, it does actually perfectly illustrate the interplay between men and women, because men are, I won't say that men are inherently logical and women are inherently emotional, but to a certain extent, that's true. I was actually just my therapist and I were just having a conversation about that, because she was having a discussion with her husband and decided to invite me. Anyway, so I've been thinking about that since I got the message earlier, and I was washing the dishes, thinking about this. So this is what you're getting. You're getting the full Jordan B. Peterson analysis of the situation. And the way I see,
you really have to understand that this is a bad situation.
You need more Kermit the Frog in there. Need more Kermit the Frog.
It's just so dang sad.
Canadian-y. Oh man, I love Jordan Peterson, but he is so fun to mimic. Anyway, yeah, he's I
think Debbie had something too. Debbie, do we want to go to you?
I do.
I had criticism for Brendan's thing.
Go for it.
Go, tell me.
Sounds so excited.
I need help.
Yes. So I felt like frustration could have been played like it just needs fine tuning to show it how you want it to actually be portrayed. Which is what most of the you have it said that she really doesn't get frustrated a lot, and then you're kind of immediately showing her getting frustrated without us having any previous knowledge that this isn't something you do. So maybe adding some more things like her taking deep breaths, or physically holding herself back from punching him. Just show
and that's sort of why I said I need to rewrite previous scenes. I'm really hoping that when I rewrite the previous scenes, I'm not going to change any of the events, but I'm hoping to show what you're talking about more. I'll put more direction in.
Not the events.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was the line like right after on the thing in the fire where she's like flipping out at him. I think it'd be better if you added she's so angry she's searching for the words. Like what was the line? It was like your realm, I thing in the fire.
Yeah. Well, your realm is causing my village.
Yes. Like your realm is causing die and you just threw away my
Yeah.
Boys.
Sure. Yeah.
And say hi.
You
just...
All right. Daniel, are you about ready?
Aaron and I are kind of corresponding over some things while y'all are talking. How to adjust certain descriptions of characters.
Yeah, I did not listen to Brendan's thing because I was reading some school textbooks. I needed to get it in somewhere. So I wanted to listen to what Dan was going to share.
It's okay. People are not required to listen to me.
I don't know.
Much to my
People are not required.
The joke's on them, though. I talk so loudly that they don't have a choice but to at least hear what I say.
Nice. I feel like with my lighting situation, with my lighting situation here, I almost need a more dramatic way of like turning. Anywho,
No, what you need is a dude in a big black cloak with a collar to stand behind you and speak in a Transylvanian accent.
Yes.
I want to suck your blood.
Okay. All right. Is my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn. Go for it. You got the floor.
All right. Aaron, why are you making notes?
Oh, I'm not. I'm writing on the prologue, which you're not reading because it has no text in it.
Cool. Alrighty. Yeah, Aaron and I are working off the same document to kind of create.
I can move it to a different document and then paste it on.
You're fine. Do what you got to do. Alrighty. So I'm starting a new novel, and actually trying to finish a novel, finish a project.
It's not. It's a collective project between me and Dan.
It's a new novel for me. Anywho. All right. This is The Maiden's Child, or is kind of a subtitle, The City of the Elves.
Right.
It's going to be book 1. Yeah, we're working on that title a little bit, but we'll just say The Maiden's Child.
And so also, notably, I also have shared my story, and it's important to note that this takes place around 400 years after the story I share on here.
Yeah. So Aaron's story, Legend of Two Elves, takes place about 400 years in the past of this story, and this takes place in the nation of Aaron.
So it's in the nation of Karatua, the tribe of Zirconia. So tribe is a division of the nation.
Alrighty. So yeah, it takes place in the nation of Karatua, and we follow a human midwife by the name of Katira. And here we go. Chapter 1. Sister, remember your oaths. Hasadarian had fallen. The contractions grew closer. The cannon fire grew louder. Sulfur and smoke filled the air. Katira placed a gentle, reassuring hand on Lady Liana Darian's abdomen. With the other hand, she reached for a wet towel on the bed behind them. I feel movement. There is hope yet, my lady, Katira whispered into her mistress's ear. I don't know how to exactly phrase that, but that's fine. Katira shot a careful glance to the bedroom's entrance, which hung ajar to allow for a quick exit to the adjoining hall. 2 men in full plate stood at the large wooden door, one on either side of the door frame. A bestial roar sounded from somewhere off in the distance, and the pair exchanged fearful glances. They both drew their blades. Katira watched them, unsure whether to act or to pray. A combination may be in order, she thought to herself. She moved frantically, gathering her supplies back into her satchel. We need you two here, Katira shouted before returning her attention to the mother-to-be. One of you, at least, she added. Lady Leanna's, that's a mouthful. I'm going to have to change that, how I phrase it. Lady Leanna's typical mirthful grin was replaced by an understandable grimace. Her pale hands moved in small rhythmic movements around her enlarged abdomen, soothing herself for the child to be, the child in her womb. Her breathing was steady and measured. Her typical well-groomed, I have to change this description now. Sorry. Her typically well-groomed raven black hair lay in unkempt mounds around her shoulders. Sweat and cool water trickled down her brow as Katira continued to wipe around her neck and forehead. Just breathe. Just breathe with me, my lady. My lady. The sound of heavily armored footfall filled the narrow hallway. Katira glanced over her shoulder once again. Right as the tall, red-headed man entered. I missed some words there. You're good. The elf continued breathlessly. Sorry, let me pause. Rewind. Milady, the sound of heavily armored footfall filled the narrow hallway. Katira glanced over her shoulder at the tall, red-headed man. The elf continued breathlessly. I don't know why I said that. That's... Anywho. The men will keep... That whole paragraph was awful.
Stop correcting yourself and just
I am trying.
It's a lot better than you think.
Okay. Next time,
lady.
You may want to just have me read it so you can do all that in silence, and then we can tell you if it was actually bad.
That sounds like a plan.
So we'll do that next time. You finish it this time.
Okay, cool.
However, you are doing a lot better than you did last time.
Yeah,
that's true.
Okay, it's just this one paragraph so far has gotten me hung up. Anyway, the men will keep the beast. A terrible crash sounded at the end of the hall, followed by a cacophony of screams and clashing metal. The car had broken through. How did they find us? Leanna barked. The man blubbered as he entered the bedroom, struggling to catch his breath. Valden, was it? And Katira remembered this man. Where do I know this man from? The man made brief eye contact with Katira and shuffled nervously. Katira's eyes widened in embarrassment as memory suddenly flooded her. Oh, the ball. I think I declined his request to dance. Never mind that now, my lady. We must flee, Katira interrupted. Leanna sighed in resignation. I suppose you're right, my dear. Lady Adarian pulled her hair back and away from her face, revealing a face of ivory and elegance. Katira could still smell the soothing she had placed. It wasn't much, less than usual, but under these circumstances, it will have to do, Katira thought to herself. The women eased off the bed cautiously, with Katira supporting much of the weight. Valden stood between them and the doorway, looking helpless. Be a lad and help us, would you? Katira phrased it as a request, but the order was understood. Yes, of course. Valden sprung into action. He took a step to Leanna's right side. The three of them readied themselves to begin into the hall when a loud crash from somewhere past the threshold, halted them. There was a dreadful pause before Valden hurried the women forward. I have been ordered to take you and any servants that you require to the old castle. There you will deliver the child. You will make it there, my lady. Valden spoke through gritted teeth. Something told Katira it was best to be wary of the confidence the guard displayed. The man stood at least 2 heads taller than her, but Katira felt no safer with him than if he was no safer with him than if she had not been. She'd seen a beast attacking them. She'd seen what they do to men, even the supposedly well-prepared ones. Though they could easily be mistaken for nothing more than simple, single-minded brutes, Akar are not to be underestimated in regards to their intelligence. They're not mindless beasts. These were our neighbors, she thought. The thought sent a shiver down Katira's spine. They want us dead. This is no trickery, no sorcery, just rage. Men poured down the hallway, running past Katira and company as they continued. Men poured down the hallway, running past Katira and company, to face the onslaught awaiting them outside. And just down the hall. Men, elf, dwarf, and many other kinds Katira had only ever seen in her textbooks raced down the narrow corridor. Fear, anger, sadness, despair. Katira could see, no, palpably feel these things as each soldier passed. She had to help them. She had to do something. Helplessness stung like a knife in Katira's abdomen. Each of these men was a brother, son, husband, a father. Each one was marching towards a certain painful end. I am doing something these men cannot. Katira averted her attention away from the doomed soldiers and towards the queen. The voice, she heard that voice, the same voice, yet again. Sister, remember your oath. Piken is here. Katira remembered suddenly. Her baby cousin, though a man only a year younger than she, Katira would always think of him as her baby cousin. The realization that he would almost certainly die today suddenly overwhelmed her. She couldn't remember the last thing she had said to him. The voice sounded again. Sister, remember your oaths. The same voice she had heard so many times before stirred her back into the present moment. Leanna's knees buckled suddenly, threatening to send her reeling and crashing into the patchwork masonry underneath her feet. Katira quickly managed to guide a gentle hand under Leanna's arm. Apologies, my lady. Katira stammered as she helped the queen regain her footing. Shut up, Leanna barked coarsely. Please, she added apologetically. Through labored breath. She squeezed Katira's shoulders affectionately. The trio turned right, passing a mural in honor of one of the holy elders. Katira couldn't quite make out which one, although she could tell it was male and alone. Taude. Forgive me, Aaron, if I got the lore wrong. So I did learn something in that religion class. The trio began down the spacious yet dimly lit corridor, the sounds of cannon fire and death all around them. Katira reached into her satchel for more soothing for the queen. She was out. Damn it, she cursed under her breath. Leanna squeezed her shoulder again tightly. The women shared a brief moment of silence as the sounds of clashing metal and breaking bones grew even closer. The shadows grew thicker around them as they moved deeper into the hallway. Tapestries and murals adorned the walls. They depicted scenes of great historic significance from across several tribes. Some Katira recognized, most she did not. did not seem the time to reminisce. Just a little further down this hall, madam, Valden huffed. Katira couldn't help but notice the stench of death and desperation wafting through the air. Silence filled the air, its tendrils lurking in from around the corner behind them. Katira peered over her shoulder quickly, assuring that they were not being followed directly. As she stared, dread washed over her as the ghastly claws of an Akar soldier glistened in the pale torchlight. Valden, hurry! Katira shouted as she assisted Lena into a chair on the wall. The sound of the struggle at the end of the hall grew more frantic with each passing moment. Valden quickly throwing priceless ornaments, throwing an old dusty rug aside, and finally working out the location of the trapdoor. He fitted his hand into a groove and lifted it up with a sudden jerk. A horrible scream sounded at the end of the hall. The trio turned almost involuntarily at the noise. Just as they all turned to look at the noise, the severely mauled and bloodied armor of a soldier was hurled through the air from the hall at the end. I'm working on my description here, and crashed into the wall, promptly landing on and crushing the Merle of Taude in a flurry of broken limbs and savage violence. Within seconds of the body hitting the floor, the hulking form of a Akar warrior forces its way into the hallway, roughly 6 meters away from Katira, which was far too close for her liking. The Akar warrior carried no weapons. It didn't need to. Its unnaturally thick hide and wickedly sharp claws were all it needed. Okay, sorry. Let's have some fun now, shall we? The warrior bellowed. He took an ominous step forward before suddenly stopping, cocking its head to the side. Katira felt a strong hand on her shoulder, pushing her gently aside. Pushing her gently aside. Time seemed to nearly stand still as she watched breathlessly as Valden began slowly marching toward the beast. Aaron, you keep making edits and I keep losing my place. He drew his great sword with practiced grace. With a practiced grace she couldn't dream of replicating. He swung. Creature lurked to its right in a blur of power and grace. Valden then thrusted his blade towards the Akar's grisly abdomen. The creature parried again. Valden's blade merely glancing the Akar warrior's thickly muscled abdomen. The knight stepped back and away from the creature, back facing the wall to Katira's left, so he's staring down, and raised his sword so that it ran across his face. I can't quite describe it, but Katira can't either. She is not a swordsman. Despite the Akar warrior's height, Valden remained undaunted, and at least outwardly. Katira struggled to breathe as she watched the pair of warriors circle each other, awaiting a sudden movement from the other. The brief moment of calm was abruptly interrupted by the sound of Valden's armored boots charging toward the opposing warrior in a flurry of movement that Katira could barely comprehend. A cacophony of metal clanging, men and beasts bellowing, and women sobbing filled the small corridor. In a moment, the knight had dropped his sword. Suddenly, the beast wrapped a massive arm around the knight, forcing him into a chokehold Katira had certainly never seen before. The beast then proceeded to deliver a series of blows that would have killed a weaker man. and yet the knight the knight continued to scream fiercely. The knight then proceeded to strike the beast in the groin before forcing the Akara warrior into a crouching position. Valden then quickly pivots and delivers a savage blow to the hulking warrior's mouth, nose, and jaw with his elbow. Then, by placing a practiced hand on the creature's windpipe, sorry, lost my place is all. Right, whenever, but where did it go? Windpipe, the knight manages to break free of the warrior's grasp. In that same moment, the Akara warrior raised his knee and quickly extended his leg out in a sudden, powerful, and devastating kick to Valden's abdomen, sending the knight crashing in a heap to the wall behind him. The Akara warrior looms over the fallen knight for a moment before he turned to Katira and the queen. He begins walking towards the women ominously. Valden lay motionless on the ground, his breathing shallow. Stronger than he looks. Still alive after all that. Katira stood between the Akara warrior and the queen. I'm sorry, I had a typo though.
Getting toward the end?
Towards, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Am I taking up too much time?
We're doing a lot. I was just trying to see how much further do you want to go further? Do you have a whole lot more? Where are we at? Percentage wise through the piece.
Nearing the end of that chapter.
Okay, go ahead, finish it up. Yeah, you're good.
Oh, we're losing people. Okay.
They'll probably pop back in.
Yeah, probably. Okay. Katira stood between the Akara warrior and the queen. She held her head high, determined to protect the queen and the innocent child inside her. The Akara warrior stopped briefly. His eyes widened in amusement. Katira held his gaze, her eyes never leaving his. She reached into her satchel quickly in hopes of finding something to defend herself with, to no avail. The Akara warrior raised a bestial hand, felt... Oh, goodness, sorry, another typo. The Akara warrior raised a bestial hand. Katira felt her heart sink as she realized she was defenseless. She braced herself for the impending attack, determined to protect the queen at all cost. She placed her body between her and the warrior. A sudden squelching noise caused Katira to open her eyes. The Akara warrior began to stagger backwards before unleashing a terrible, pained roar. Valden, despite his injuries, managed to skewer the massive warrior when its back was turned. Suddenly, an arrow flew through the air and struck the Akara warrior in the head, killing it instantly. Valden collapsed to his knees, coming to his wounds. The Akara warrior fell, of course, and Katira rushed over to help Valden. Katira spun on her heels to glance down the hall. A pair of familiar... What? Okay, Aaron, stop it. Watchful blue eyes, thank you, mirrored her own. Piken. Katira screamed in relief. She immediately ran down the hall and embraced her cousin. Piken stood a few inches shorter than Katira, but his athletic build made him appear every bit as imposing. That line didn't make sense. Alrighty. His nearly bald head, the result of keeping his hair cut extremely short, gave him a stern, disciplined appearance. His bold blue eyes were striking, standing out vividly against his complexion, yada, yada, yada. Sorry, I'm trying to skip to the end here.
You gotta read this one. You gotta read the next line. Oh, sure.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Run right past me. I'll be fine. Thanks for asking. A weary but battered Valden said from the other end of the hall. He attempted to stand, but staggered. Queen Leanna assisted him up. Katira turned her gaze back towards her cousin. We need to get them to the old castle. I need you to help me get them there. She spoke over her shoulder as she walked back towards Valden and the Queen. She stepped over the fallen Akar warrior. Without hesitation, Pyken placed 2 fingers in his lips and let out a whistle that pierced through the chaos and echoed across the corridor. Moments later, 4 heavily armed men, all human, dressed in bloodied robes and chainmail, rounded the corner and followed Pyken. The troop marched towards the Queen, their capes billowing with every step. Their faces were hidden but behind their helms, but their resolve was unquestioned. She and a soldier assisted the Queen to her feet, while 2 of the soldiers assisted Valden to his. The group made their way quickly to the secret door at the end of the corridor. They would get the Queen to the old castle. The thought reassured Katira. Not all of us will get there. The thought sobered her. And then at the end, sister, remember your oath. In the presence of the Maker Mighty, and in the company of the elders, I, sister of the final order, do solemnly swear to create and never destroy, to heal and ne'er wound without just cause, to uphold sacred bond between mother and child, to serve in compassion, wisdom, and mastery, guided by the gentle radiance of Luna, elder of mercy, of Nuna, elder of mercy, rest, and healing. I do solemnly pledge to safeguard the health and safety of both mother and babe. In times of trial, I shall rely on the Maker's grace. Aaron changed something here, and
I changed the spelling in the same way that I previously changed it.
Okay. In times of trial, I shall rely on the Maker's grace, and Nuna to offer solace and succor. In times of rejoicing, may I revel in the miracle of new life with reverence and gratitude. With each new life entrusted upon me, may I bring honor to my king, country, and to my Maker above. Sister, remember your oaths. Sorry for taking up so much time.
It's all good. It's all good. Thoughts before we continue? Anybody? We had some connection to the previous ones, correct? The ones or remind me the connection directly, because I forgot it because you mentioned it toward the beginning.
This takes place 400 years after the book I'm writing.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So basically
this has all the makings of the beginning of like a I want to say Count of Monte Cristo. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. Just a little bit different on the genders and some of the other things going on. You've got very huge, big things happening at the very beginning of someone's life. I'm enjoying that. Obviously, this one was a little more. It needed a little bit more work on certain parts, and you guys know that. I like. See, this is the thing. You guys are popping in and out of the Silmarillion sort of vibe of things, and this was a lot more Silmarillion than the other. And
this one was?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying in the language and in the tone, not in the actual events, right? Because you can have a guy going and getting coffee and make it sound like the Silmarillion, right? In tone. You see what I'm saying, right? And so, and that just might be what this period of time sounds like versus the 400 years before. It sounded very different. But that's something that getting a cohesive tone to your works would be helpful, but not 100% necessary as Tolkien has shown us, as long as you're clear in what's what. I feel like I would need another time as far as like the specifics of how this fits in to really say much about it plot wise, but what I heard was decent. You know, it, like I said, you guys know it needed a little work. You were working on it as you went. Like that's where we're at. So I don't have a whole lot that I can go off of, but it's not that it's bad in any kind of way. Like, you have good stuff there. It's just needs to cook a little bit more, you know? So
stop correcting yourself mid-read.
Yeah. No, I mean, the main thing that got me this time was just typos and stuff. But other than that, like Joshua said, this one needs to cook, but it does have. I'm proud of it. I like it a lot better than the last thing I tried to share. So
yeah, it was a lot better. I will say that.
Soldiers of the Artistic Battalion, prepare for a momentary pause as we charge into the realm of commercials.
Are you looking for thought-provoking Christian perspectives that bring unity across denominations? Then you'll want to check out Logosophia magazine. As a free online interdenominational publication, Logosophia publishes a variety of creative works like articles, stories, and poems on different theological themes each quarter. Their goal is to have respectful conversations that highlight our shared beliefs outlined in the Apostles', Nicene, and Athanasian creeds, as we clarify our differences. So if you want to dive deeper into your faith while learning from other Christian expressions, subscribe to Logosophia magazine today on their website or listen to their podcasts. We look forward to journeying with you.
Now is the time for your book recommendation minute with Alexander Robertson, the part of the show where Alexander Robertson comes out and recommends a book.
I was at the Fight Laugh Feast conference recently, and I picked up this gem from the Noggin Nose booth, where I was lucky enough to meet with the author. I expected that I would enjoy it. It was Doug Wilson's Book of the Month a while ago, but I did not anticipate exactly how fantastic it would be. However, before I continue with my praise, I probably ought to explain what exactly this book is. The Thing is a collection of 5 stories by Rivers Houseal. The subtitle is Short Stories of Things and the People That They Encounter, and it very much lives up to the promise of that subtitle. Each story is based around a meeting of thing and person and the events which follow. From a typewriter being found in the middle of the road by an aspiring writer, to a deformed potato found by a soldieress in the Women's Land Army amidst World War II, each story is beautifully crafted in every facet. The characters are believable to the point where I was convinced I had met many of them, and the form of the short stories so very well suited to these tales. It is a relatively rare thing for a book or story of any form to bring a tear to my eye, but multiple stories in this collection did. The themes of God's grace and sovereignty resonate very deeply with me, and the skill with which Miss Houseal works beautifies these themes and raises them to a level of glory which I have very rarely seen. This book is absolutely marvelous, and I recommend it heartily to everyone who has a taste for stories of any form. I'm certain that nobody will be disappointed. In my part of the world, at least, to see a typewriter sitting in the middle of the road is not normal. But if I have learned one thing, it is that odd things do happen, and there it sat. Furthermore, I was raised to know that when one spies a typewriter in trouble, one rescues it. So I did. Excerpt from Of When a Typewriter Was Found, the first story in this collection.
Soldiers, regroup and march forward. Let the battle of ideas reignite on Poets at War.
But I've been torn between dropping people right in on the action and showing this is where we're at right now in the story, as opposed to maybe starting a little later back and building up to this moment.
Right.
What do y'all think?
Alrighty, well, TK, you're scheduled next. Are you ready?
Ready.
Thank you for your patience. Rock and roll.
Whoops. Wrong document. Okay, this is in my second novel of the Chronicle of the Hidden People series, is currently in betas. This is Chapter 7, Rock City, The People That Lived in Hiding. Sarah woke up the next morning groggy from the influence of the late hour and raids. She dragged herself from bed and shambled downstairs to breakfast. Mrs. Janssen before she ate and begged for forgiveness, saying she was sick. When she arrived in the kitchen, she looked around at her family, all looking seriously freaked out still. "Don't worry, everyone," she said with a weak smile. "They don't come out in the daytime. Everything's fine." "If everything were fine, you wouldn't have been running around like a headless chicken turning on the lights," observed Uriel. "Fair point. We've all had a long night," said Rachel. "Dad already called Mrs. Janssen for you." "No, it's Miss Janssen." Sarah. She understands. Didn't call for Angela and I, groused Uriel. Uriel Marie, Rachel began in her best mom voice. If you can't be civil, you can leave the table. Sarah sat down with her cereal, glancing at Uriel, who looked rather peevish, far less angry than she had been after hearing all the witch had done. Dell looked more sympathetically at her now. No more questions about her sanity clouded her family's eyes. Questions about other things for sure, but not that. After breakfast, when everyone but Granny had gone to work, Sarah went out to inspect the lawn where the creature had been. She walked around the circle of burnt grass it left, curiously examining the pattern. It clearly had cloven hooves, like the fawns she'd met in Meridian, but was sure as anything not a jolly friend of the forest and harvest. She followed the trail of blackened grass across her lawn and into the street. She looked both ways, then jogged across the asphalt to the opposite side, where the tracks went off into a neighbor's lawn and she could go no further. She turned to her left and saw the hill rising above the neighborhood. She could go down to Evermore and speak with Airwolf. She turned around back to her house. Granny? Yes, lovey? Granny called from her room. I'm going to Evermore. I found that monster's tracks. Granny came out of her room. Is that wise? I don't know what else to do, honestly. Mr. Carson is the only one I know who could manage this sort of situation. Granny nodded. It's best you go then, dear, before your daddy comes home. And don't worry about him. I'll set him straight. Gran. Sarah set off at a jog for Tara Hill. As she passed her church, she saw the priests, Father Paul and Father Matt, outside raking leaves from around the front stoop of the church. Morning, fathers. Morning, Sarah, called Father Matt, the younger of the pair. Where are you off to in such a hurry? Asked Father Paul, who had been in St. Finton's church for ages. I'm just out for a jog. Father Paul motioned her closer, then wiggled his finger for Father Matt to come as well. Once they were gathered close, Father Paul pulled up his sleeve to reveal a leather bracelet with a gold Triskelion medallion attached to it. Father Matt revealed a similar bracelet. You mean you both? Yes, and we are even trained in the rifle world in case of emergency. I've known Erdwolf for years, married him and Katrina by the rites of this world, and baptized Boris in the same font you were baptized in. He let me on the secret once he was sure I could handle it, said Father Matt. There wasn't long to wait, honestly. I guess you're headed up to Evermore? Yes, sir. Good. We know about the thing that was abroad last night, and if we could have tracked it, we would have banished it ourselves. Father Paul looked across the hill and crossed himself. Something is at battle for the soul of this city, and I feel things are coming to a head. Sarah nodded solemnly. That did not make her feel any more confident. Sarah climbed swiftly up the hill and found the door under the roots of a tree. And she realized she didn't have a key. Shoot, she muttered, turning to go back down the hill. On the other side of a tree, she heard someone big and heavy coming towards her. She looked up and saw Boris standing above her with his axe in hand. Boris, what are you doing here? Even with the late night, the logs need splitting. Boris returned his axe to his back sheath and jumped down. But I could ask you the same question. I found something down below they need to talk to your parents about. I don't have a key to the door. Oh, no problem. I was done for the day. I'll walk you down. Boris offered his arm to her, massive compared to her own. Boris unlocked the brass key I need to leave that other Boris. And they walked off together. She switched on her flashlight. Boris grunted in pain. Whoa, are you okay? Ouch, I'll be fine. Boris rubbed his eyes with his free hand. It's my night eyes. You can see in the dark? Not as good as my dad, but yeah, the flashlight helps. We'll get to areas where we have lights soon. The path was smooth and sandy under their feet as they wandered underground. How far do these tunnels go? There's some that are blocked off, but they go all over the city. Most of them started as salt or crystal mines or chambers that the dwarves opened out for us. So you could walk all the way across town and never once come out? It would take a while, but yeah. Dad's going to have some little hand-powered rail cars installed to important locations, but that'll take some time. Sarah looked up towards Boris's hidden face. I want to apologize for Ree last night. It was rude of her to try to look under your hood. Boris shrugged. Doesn't bother me, he said boldly. I don't blame people for being curious. Sarah could tell that it was a lie that Boris didn't care. After walking for several minutes, Sarah could tell they were coming to the main halls from the crystal lanterns embedded in the walls. "Watch your head," said Boris, ducking through a low doorway. Beyond was the main hall of Evermore. The smell of the Elysium from the tree in a nearby chamber, open to the sun, filled Serafina with a longing for the other world. Off the main chamber were the various doors to the living spaces. All the doors were round with different colors of paint on them. "Wow, where is everyone?" Boris frowned. "Whatever's going on, it's got a lot of people weak and sick from the dark magic and despair. Even Cullen left. He's been here for ages." "I know it. Only Caitlin stay behind. The good thing the Wild Hunt is still around, otherwise we'd be in serious trouble." "The Wild Hunt? Oh, you've never met them. Well, you will soon enough." Boris swung to the door to his family's chambers open. "Mom, Dad, home. I brought Lady Sarah with me." Boris unzipped his hoodie and hung it on a nearby hat rack. Under that, he was dressed like a normal boy of his age, in a t-shirt and dark-colored jeans. Except, of course, he was bigger boned and more muscular than most boys, and sported tiny horns and tusks. Thanks to his ever-present hood, Sarah had never noticed his hair before, which was auburn, very curly, and cropped close to his head. Wolf entered from the narrow hallway, taking up at least half of it with his bulk. If she didn't know he was gentle and good, she would be afraid of him. His arms were longer than his son's, curling up over his head like those of a mountain goat. He wore his hair long, braided and bound with silver rings, and his beard was short, but for a little braid at his chin, also bound with a silver ring. The rings were symbols of his status as a chieftain. His hair had once been auburn, but now was largely gray. The door closed close to those worn by the elves, a loose white shirt with a long tunic and dark canvas pants. He bowed to Sarah. "My lady, it is good to see you." His voice was much quieter than his son's. "It's good to see you too, Mr. Carson." Airwolf gestured to the antique chaise lounge, clearly too delicate for him to sit in, where Sarah sat down. Next to the chaise was a bookshelf, the top shelf of a hurdy-gurdy. Across from Sarah sat another freestanding bookshelf, a large sofa made of rough-hewn logs and a rack of axes. At the foot of the chaise was a very large armchair, clearly made for Airwolf. Boris sat down on the sofa. "Katrina will be here in a few minutes," the ogre assured her, sitting in his armchair. "I came down to tell you that I found that thing's tracks, for what it's worth. I bet by tonight the trail have gone cold." The ogre nodded. "I'm afraid so, but thank you anyway." "Better than nothing," said Boris. "As we don't even know what it is, knowing anything is better than knowing nothing." "You don't even know what it is? In all my years, I've never run into such a beast." "Well, doesn't that fill you with confidence?" Katrina, wearing an apron and drying her hands on a towel, came in from the narrow hallway. Her hair was also growing gray, but had once been gold. "Serafina, what are you doing here? Are you all right?" asked Katrina. "I'm fine. I just wanted to tell your husband about the clues I found above ground." "Was there any sign of what it was?" "It looked like a nastier species of fawn, cloven hooves and all." "Could it be Pan?" wondered Katrina. Airwolf shook his head. "No, Pan wouldn't be accompanied by wraiths. He's more tricksy than that. And Cernunos is on our side. He wouldn't appear to frighten anyone." "Don't eat the Turkish delight, that's all I'm saying," joked Boris. "Speaking of Turkish delight, would you like something to eat? We have fresh baked biscotti from Mario's." "Mario? We go to church with him. He's been an elf friend for ages. His family has certain obligations to the Christmas court." "The Christmas what?" "We'll explain later. But would you like anything?" "No, thank you. I had better go home before Granny worries." "I'll walk you home if you want," offered Katrina, taking off her apron. "I would like that, thank you. I don't want to get lost down here." That's where I'm going to end it.
All right.
For you.
Very good as always. You were already on top of everything that I was noticing. I heard you make very brief edits once or twice, but like, yeah, good gracious. I love listening to your stuff. Other folks, what do you got?
I love Boris.
Boris is the best.
I love
Boris and Eddie could have a crossover. Anyway.
Eddie would be like the ultimate bro team of
curmudgeonly males.
I don't even think they're that curmudgeonly. Just like, have any of you ever seen that like nerd and jock comic thing? I feel like
so.
that would. It's this ridiculous like comic thing that's like anyway, point is it's really amusing. And I feel like Eddie would be the nerd and Boris would be the jock, even Boris is not a jock, saying that he's a jock, but the point of the comic is there's this little dude and this big dude, and Eddie, I'm picturing is small and Boris is big, and their adventures would be amazing and yes.
Agreed.
Oh, the next book, Boris is going to get a little sidekick in the next book. So
yay!
Sidekick. Yes.
That's just what I want. A small sidekick for a big dude.
Yeah.
It is a classic. Anyone else?
Mm-hmm.
For TK?
We're also planning on doing a crossover with Walter Ulrich.
Yes.
And so far the only idea I have is Boris and Walter watch something blow up and say "damn" at the same time.
That sounds wonderful.
Abigail,
Abigail, do you have access to your thing yet? I have something very short I can do if you want to prepare.
Does anybody else have anything to say to my sister?
Yeah, also, does anyone else have anything to say to TK that we haven't said on all her other fantastic, amazing readings?
Apologies for wasting your time. I should have just... There's TK.
Aww. Well, we want to hear more of your stuff too. We just want you to get better as you work on it. And you will. I know you will.
Yeah. No, I mean, she's just better, so...
It's almost like she's been doing this for a long time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that is... I cannot... it's fine.
Alrighty then. Anyone else? Alrighty.
I didn't hear very much of it, but it sounded really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If it's okay with you, Abigail,
I can access my...
Oh, good.
Oh, you can. Are you ready?
Can I do my short little thing real quick? It's just an ad copy run through with you guys.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay.
Cheese and rice is tempting.
Let me.
Okay.
Yeah, this has been a long one, but it's okay. It's not just Daniel. Like we were running long before Daniel.
Yeah, I know, but
if you guys got to roll, you got to roll.
Oh,
yeah,
I
gotta say. What?
They'll listen later and put their thoughts in the brood, right, guys?
Oh, yeah. Well, my thing is short.
Your thing is short, though?
I'll just listen.
Yeah.
All right, I can go last.
Abby is one of my favorite.
I'll stay, Joshua.
Okay, sounds good.
Saying he's got to leave.
All right, Aaron, we'll see you.
Bye, Aaron. Oh, and Daniel, I didn't hear all of your thing, but it was.
Sorry. I said I wanted to share something, but I gotta leave soon.
Oh yeah, no, Dan, I heard your part of your thing, and it was really good. And you're still working on it, and obviously there's.
I just gave y'all the rough. Here's what current state it is. I haven't gotten a chance to go through and edit or anything, so it's just there you go.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Cool.
Oh my goodness. I say that I have it, but I don't see where I put it. I'm like, Dan, listen to my thing, and then I don't have access to it. So where did I put this stupid thing? What did I even call this stupid thing? Oh my goodness. There it is.
You have 41 stupid things.
I do.
I'm not surprised that you can't find it.
Okay. Yeah, I went through and listed all my potential works in progress, and I have 41 at least.
Yeah.
Okay. So I sent I have a complete novel, which is 220,000 words long, which is obviously too long. So I'm planning on dividing it into 3 parts, and actually it works really well. And it occurred to me that I can make a prologue for each part that would make the whole thing like really fun and interesting. I already have basically I have what I want to do in mind for each of the second and the third part, but not the first. So I dashed off a random prologue for part 1, which is what I'm going to read to you. And it's like 800 words, so it won't take long. Only when the last procession of mourners had flowed away from the vale did the old man rise from his place kneeling beside the mirror. He had remained that way for so long that no one, great or humble, had paid him any heed. It might have been days since he dropped here onto the cushion in the vaulted room at the top of the tower, and spread his hands out as if to embrace grief, head bowed, eyes half closed. At his first movements, the knight who had stood near the door at the end of the room, taking over the vigil from another some hours before, started forward and was at the old man's side in time to assist him to his feet. "They are gone, Sir Carad," the old man said in a voice that wavered, dry with disuse. Or, I'm coughing, but sorry. "Yes, father, this hour past." The wizard shook off his words as if they were a cobweb. "The vale is empty of all who live." "Save us," Sir Carad said. "Yes, save us." It took the old man a second too long to repeat the words, and the knight could not help a shiver. He gathered the various accoutrements of the long vigil until no trace of it remained. The cushion placed again in its alcove, candles trimmed, floor swept, the mirrors swathed in crimson cloth. When he came to the large book on the reading table, however, the wizard stopped him. "No, Sir Carad, do not touch it. The book is a perilous thing always, but now it holds surpassing danger for you especially. I shall carry it." "As you say, father." The knight drew back with a start, as if the very proximity of the tome burned with fiery heat. His hours of vigil had engendered in him fears such as he had never known, though he knew that nothing could touch him or the wizard. This tangible threat was nearly enough to overpower what courage remained in him. He coughed, sudden roughness from his throat, and began again. "Do you require refreshment?" The wizard, swathing the book in layers of rich cloth, and then securing it in a satchel, his movements achingly slow, shook his head. "No, the enchantments are prepared, and await only our departure to fall upon the tower in full force. It would be well to leave as soon as the horses are ready. See to it." "Yes, I will return as soon as possible to help you with any further preparations." Sir Carad ran down to the lowest levels, where he found the 2 horses left for them, safe in the stables, though restless with an edge of fear. He saddled them swiftly, secured the bags of supplies, and the wizard's luggage already prepared, and then hurried back. But despite his haste, the old man was still before him. He hobbled down the steps, breath labored as if he had been running, but haggard face pale and more drained, even than by his long vigil. "Come," he panted. "Come, let us be gone." Sir Carad did not question, for even the shadows seemed more alive and malevolent than before. He led the way to his stables, helped the old man to mount, and then at last they rode together down and out of the vast gates. The wizard closed and locked the door, then gave the key to his companion. "You know what to do with this?" "Yes, father." "Good. The key is your part. The book is mine. And then death." He sighed, looking out briefly over the vale. "Death is very close now." Sir Carad let a grim smile pass his lips. "Let's get beyond these monsters first, and then see about death." They did not slow, though Sir Carad's spear was broken and his sword was bloodied, until they left the vale and its horrors behind them. At the very first step beyond its borders, the very path they were on seemed to shift and dim, and looking back, Sir Carad could not see it any more. The tower had vanished, the landscape had changed. "What is this?" he cried. "The enchantments are wrought and quickened." The wizard gasped, clutching his chest. "The tower is lost, lost forever." "Then farewell, King Rasatisar. May your rest be sweet." Sir Carad raised his hand and bent his head in tribute. After a moment, he added, "But the sword, father, it is lost now too, as Rasatisar wished." The knight shook his head, troubled. "No, I believe it must have been more than that. There will be a need of the sword again. I may not have your gifts, wizard, but one day the sword of Rasatissa will be wielded again. And that's it.
Very nice. Very good prologue. Lots of intrigue.
If you're about to tell me I can't just go on Amazon and say add to cart, I'm going to be very sad.
You can't, sorry.
Oh.
For some reason, it reminded me of The Well at the World's End by William Morris.
I haven't read that.
No one has. Never mind.
Don't hold
I mentioned that book, and people are just like, "What?" Me and literally one other person.
I started it. Haven't finished it. I haven't recently started it either. It was a while ago. But here's my thing. Every time I hear it, I think to myself, I should just come up with a name for an obscure book with an obscure author and just like float it to people all the time until someone notices that it doesn't exist.
I Lovecraft did it.
Did he?
Lovecraft did, yeah.
That's kind of like what the Princess Bride does too, a little bit, kind of, sort of.
Yes.
So yeah,
there is no such book as the Necronomicon. It does not exist.
Right.
Although sometime around 1960, a copy of it suddenly appeared and just started floating around.
Fun.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that sounds troubling.
Other thoughts for Abigail before she has to get going.
All right. Digress.
Or not her. She's not leaving. Wilson's are. Sorry. Anyway, I'm not keeping track well. Other people.
The main thing I just have to say is that the prose was very nice to listen to.
Those descriptions were very great. I can't say I picked up on a lot of the plot. Just I could hear you. I just thinking about this and that, and I'm tired, and I can't wait to read it. Or do you need beta readers? Please let me read it.
I need to finish dividing up the first book, and then I will need beta readers. Yes.
Nice.
It is very the prose itself is very medieval.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Alrighty. So, I guess we'll continue forward. Aaron, you still wanted to share something at the very end, yes?
Well, I could.
Is there time?
I mean, I'm going to stay here regardless. That's just who I am. And people can listen later on the podcast and give their feedback in the brood.
Sure.
All right. My thing.
Good night, guys.
All right, guys. Good night.
Bye.
We love you. All right.
We love you too.
Okay, so I'll just do mine real quick. It's very short. Just an ad copy thing. I want to get y'all's thoughts.
I
this
will
is
have
from...
to... Wait,
Yes.
specifically, I will have to leave in 18 minutes.
I can't.
Got it. Yeah, mine is literally a book description, so it'll take just a second. And then following that, we'll read yours and go from there. This is for my Guardians of Atlantis series. It is the superhero series, specifically the first season, which I will be releasing an audiobook. Hopeful, like my deadline is before July. But I'm hoping to get it done in like the next couple weeks so that y'all can go check that out. And I'm going to be sending a bunch of you physical copies. Anyway, beneath the imposing facade of Stone Mountain lies a hidden secret, veiled in darkness and enigma. As disparate characters possessing extraordinary powers are drawn to unveil its legend, they unwittingly become entangled in an ancient clash between the forces of good and evil. Amidst the peculiar happenings surrounding Cirrus Jones's family farm, her unique ability to command the weather unveils its true purpose. Determined to unearth the truth behind the relentless loss of everything she holds dear, Cirrus embarks on an investigation that intertwines her faith with two enigmatic figures, Mr. H, Mr. H, and the captivating carnival performer Bobby Carter. Simultaneously, two knights break free from their allegiance to the Knights of Adonai, questioning the motives of their order. Now on the run, William Avery and the ailing Quentin Fenris must evade those who seek to silence them forever as they grapple with their own destiny. As these lives converge, even more extraordinary individuals emerge from the shadows. Amira Kadru, a young prodigy with the power of mirroring, and the enigmatic warlock Marlin, who aids the amnesic Amy, add their unique strengths to the growing alliance. Together with Cirrus, Bobby, and William, they unite as the Guardians of Atlanta, standing against the sinister forces of darkness that seek to resurrect the ancient legend of Stone Mountain. With every path converging upon Stone Mountain, an inevitable final showdown looms on the horizon. But what unearthly power lies dormant within the sacred rock? And who will emerge victorious in the battle to unravel the legend? Prepare to be swept away in this epic tale of superheroes as it unfolds in the form of a poetic masterpiece. There you go.
Nice. Okay, yeah. I get a physical copy, right?
Yeah, you're one of the people I have earmarked.
Okay, good.
So it's going to be on SD card. It's going to be audio, but I will have an ebook for you as well. So
Nice.
that you can follow along with. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you have the the print version of this, so I can look at it.
I have of this copy.
This thing, yes, of the copy. I want to look at what you just read.
I will send it to you. I'm noticing the word enigma / enigmatic probably shows up one too many times. But as I read it out loud, but outside of that, I am sending it to you via Messenger, Abigail. So there you are.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes. Other thoughts, anybody?
You
nailed it.
It was right up my alley. It was just, yeah.
You said I nailed it, Brendan?
I mean, yeah, but isn't that what you already have for like the commercial?
No, this is new. This was created today.
How nice.
Okay, then. Shows you how well I notice things. And the answer's not very.
Well, I mean, there was nothing to notice. I literally just unveiled it to you here. The only other place I've posted this is to a direct message to Alex earlier. So.
Yeah, I mean, sounds good to me. I can't think of any thing about it that is weird. So.
Okay.
I mean,
any further thoughts out?
Like, what era does it take place in?
2010s.
2010s. Okay, so basically modern day.
Yeah, the reason the Knights are a thing is they're a modern order parachurch group thing. They're a whole thing.
Yeah.
I could go into them big time, but they're anyway. But I'm not gonna. Abigail, anything further on it now that you've taken a quick look before we get to Aaron?
I think it could be. You could probably trim it a little bit. You know, just removing any of those extra enigmas and things.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It's an episodic. It's kind of an episodic story that goes from one hero to another, and I kind of wanted it to be like these. We kind of have these two main tendrils of the story, and then there's a couple smaller tendrils that all converge. And so.
I've been listening and really enjoying it. So.
Oh, good.
I think that. I don't know. I'm not caught by. I don't like the word simultaneously.
Okay.
That's like, it feels a bit clunky. I think you could cut that. And then.
But I don't want it to seem like it's a different era because the Knights thing. But like, do I then use things like parachurch whatever, like, my other words for modern order and blah blah blah.
For that one, I think you should put William at the front. Like,
okay,
move, because you have Cyrus Jones at the beginning.
Yeah,
of her
Cyrus
paragraph.
is at the beginning of
I
the
think
story,
you should,
though.
Yeah, and you should headline the characters rather than the organization they're part of.
Yeah.
So put
Okay, I see.
William, because he's the primary character of that. Put him at the beginning, because that would give him, because his story has it has some interesting powers. So I would put him at the beginning of that paragraph and cut this simultaneously, because it's like, we already know that they're converging.
Right. Okay.
And, yeah.
All
Just
right.
trim it down a little bit with all those extra bits, and you should be good.
Thanks. Appreciate it. All right, Aaron, you have the floor.
Okay. So, Dan, do you want me to share something for the Legend of Two Elves, or my idea for the prologue of Maiden's Child?
Whatever you can think you're doing, I'm holding you accountable. You said you had to go in 10-ish minutes, so.
All right, so I think the prologue idea is pretty short. So this is my idea for the Maiden's Child prologue, and I'll discuss it with Dan later. Alev, Sheriff of Anvir, heir of House Adarian, sat across from a dark-haired elf in handcuffs. Nobody knew the man or how he ended up in this conspicuous village. Alev Adarian looked nervously at the handcuffs. They would be useless if the man was who he thought he was. "Why are you here?" Adarian asked. "I can ask why I am bound," the man said in a strange, regal accent. That was part of the reason. "Look, I see that you're a spy. You're not from here, and that means a lot since there are only 3 places in this world an elf can be from, so this is about me interrogating you." "And you will execute me?" the man asked. Adarian shivered. "I might if I can. I will need to bring your case before the 6 houses. Yet 5 alone remain," he asked. A shiver crept down Adarian's spine. "It's still called that," Adarian said. "But yes, 5 remain," he lied. "And you give me information. Curious, but you think I'm a spy." "You are most definitely a spy. Nobody as young as you should have dark hair." The man leaned forward. "And who do you think I would be if I was a spy?" Adarian stood up in a rush. "I need to bring you into Edendel. I can't speak to you here." "And why should a sheriff like you be heard at Edendel?" the man asked. Adarian began to shake. Maybe the spy wasn't the only one who was too obvious. Maybe the spy technically wasn't a spy. "All sheriffs can bring a spy before the 6 houses." "You say that as if there isn't 5, the man replied. "Like you believe the rumors are true." What rumors?" Adarian shook. "I should have never entered this room," he thought. The spy stood up. He walked. His hands were free. "That house Adarian remains," the spy replied. "Its heir lives, the heir of the only line that never gave up its claim. Its claim to the title Elder Slayer." "Those are only rumors," Adarian replied. "That you believe," the spy walked up. "And it seems to me that you may be the reason." Adarian grabbed his sword. "I may be wrong, but if I am, I can't escape," the spy said. "So let me be clear with you, before I kill you. I have come to kill the heir of House Adarian, and have been given power from the witch to kill you with a single touch." Adarian smiled. "You know nothing about the water?" The spy touched Adarian. Nothing happened. "What?" "This didn't work 200 years ago, and it won't work today," Adarian replied. "It didn't work ever since the day Eldwin ground the petal of the flower and put it in the river. I thought you would at least be competent enough to bring a sword." Adarian took his own blade out of the scabbard. "Since you have been so kind to inform me, I will let you know something before I kill you. I am Alev Adarian Dragonflower, heir to the House of Adarian, son of the Kinslayer. But I have been forgotten by all, except apparently you." The spy frantically began to form a sword out of the stone. Adarian laughed. Do you know what this blade is made of? Do you know where it comes from? The spy shook his head. You should know. You assumed we have lost so much that in truth remains. This is the silver blade, the one Kara made, her gift to the kinslayer. Adarian charged forward and cut his foe cleanly in two. And you, my foe, are about to be dead. It took a significant amount of time to ensure the spy didn't have enough of a body left to survive. And when Adarian was done, the floor was covered in blood. Adarian stood back, shaking. The elders knew he was being hunted. His men barged through the door, his fellow soldiers. His lieutenant, Celesser, Nini Mariendel, grabbed Adarian. Sir, what just happened? You're the heir? Yeah, Adarian replied. Yeah, I am. The Valdir has recognized and recorded it. Think, he said. Wait, why did I say that? Why for the love of all that is good did I say that? Adarian began to pace. He died, the spy died, but who knows who else was listening? Who knows if one of you will defect, he shouted. Why did I say that? Celesser looked at him, stunned. What do you mean? I'll have to declare myself, Adarian said. I'll see you in Edendel if you go there. War is about to start, and unfortunately, I'm the reason, he said. If you want any hope, make sure you and everyone here keeps your mouth shut. I'm going home. Adarian barged out of the room, leaving his co-workers to clean up the mess. They never would have guessed. All right.
Good stuff as usual. I'm enjoying the prose is really coming along for you. You're moving away from the sort of like I've said, the Silmarillion style to more of a, it reminds me a little bit of what TK does, but on a more removed, you have a more removed narration style. Your narration style is almost script-like, but it works for what you're doing because you're bolstering it with dialogue. That's your strength. You're kind of building everything around the dialogue, which I'm noticing your style starting to come forth more and more, even in something a little different from what you were doing before. I'm seeing the style shine through, and that's not always a good thing. You don't want your style to take away from stuff, but like no one reads C.S. Lewis who doesn't like his style. You know what I mean? So I appreciate it for that. Other thoughts?
Nice.
Brendan, Abigail, Daniel, anybody?
I have a hard time. I have a hard time with names. It's just my thing. It was a good event sequence. It was dramatic. I don't think there might have been enough reaction to the fact that the spy's hands were free when before they weren't. You might want to boost the reaction of like, wait, what do you mean your hands are free? How'd that happen? But I don't know. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I'm having a time. It's okay. I'm being distracted by my nephew who was just born a few days ago on the phone.
Oh,
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's getting late for everybody, and I'm definitely going to take a listen again and give everybody some advice if I can. But yeah, Daniel.
It was. If I was understanding that scene correctly, I think why his hands were able to, it wasn't a surprise because the king, Adarian, he's the king, right?
Well, I'm thinking that he becomes the king like in the middle of the book.
So the main dude, Adarian, is aware that the other guy is magical or something, and it's like,
he knows exactly what he can do.
Okay, so he's not surprised that his hands are now free because it's just kind of like, why are his hands free? We know that's pointless. So
yeah, and like I said, like at the start, Adarian was thinking, like, what was it? He knew that if this spy was who we thought he was, those handcuffs would be useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abigail, yeah, go ahead, Abigail.
Well, yeah, I think very intriguing prologue. Definitely, like, oh, interesting. I think the if anything, you might need to make the interrogator dynamic a little bit stronger. Like he says, like he needs to have a position of authority. So he's like unquestioningly, I'm in charge. Like, what are you doing? You're a spy. Tell me who you are. Where are you from? And he was a little bit more apologetic than he could have been. So you could boost the way he says things a little bit, just give him a bit more confidence until things change, and then change again. Because you had some nice little twists in there.
Yeah, and I noticed like the change in his confidence is rather like drastic. I mean, I guess you could go for that, but maybe he was like somewhere in the middle. You could show him like slowly start to descend into the panic.
What basically happened is that essentially the villain told the hero how he was going to kill the hero, right? But the hero has knowledge about how the magic system works, essentially, and he knew as soon as he heard the villain's plan, this guy is completely unprepared. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so that's why his confidence shot up.
Who, the spy or the what's his name?
Huh?
Never mind. Go ahead.
So that's basically it.
Okay. Alrighty then. We'll go ahead and wrap this for tonight. Couple of things. Just reminder to everyone who's listening, I've been posting in the Brood, but we're trying to get some Meet the Brood videos into some of these slots for commercials. I'm going to start adding them more often. I've been working on bumpers with Sergeant Ollie, that particular character who speaks on Poets at War, and kind of trying to revitalize certain parts of the show, particularly promoting you guys. So go ahead, send your videos in to joshuadavidling@gmail.com or anywhere that you can get a hold of me, and we're going to get these Meet the Brood videos together. If you want the specific rules, go to the Discord channel, the Green Dragon Bar. That's where I have the announcement, and I'll be continuing to make that announcement daily for a little while longer, then I'll change it to weekly. But I really want to get some of these videos going so I can promote you guys. Anyway, be your family's bard. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and the Lord will be with you wherever you go. We'll see you next time in the trenches on Poets at War.
This is the Broodcast, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. To join, go to joshuadavidling.com/Discord.